So I wish that I were coming to you under different circumstances, but sadly I'm not. These are the circumstances Mother Nature has dealt us. As I'm sure you have heard, yesterday Japan was hit with the fifth largest earthquake in recorded history and the largest in Japanese history, measuring an 8.9 on the scale. It has been truly devastating to northeastern Japan. I'm going to briefly try, as briefly as I can, try and go over a few points. First, the current state of things here in Tokyo and Japan. The immediate aftermath, second, of the earthquake yesterday, and third, my personal experience in everything that happened. Again, I'll try to do it as quickly as I can, but there's a lot to say, and I don't want to do it poorly. First, the current state here. You know what? There's a lot more we don't know than we do know. It's only 24 hours out from the initial earthquake, and less than that from when the tsunami struck. So many people are missing. However, currently the estimate is 1,300 people confirmed dead or wounded. So many more missing, not being able to be contacted by their family and friends. So there's a lot of anxiety going on throughout the country right now, here in Tokyo and especially in northeastern Japan. The Tokyo situation is really not that bad. A lot of people sent concern for my well-being, asked about my goldfish Kenji. Of course, both of me and my goldfish are fine. We're really not the people you should be worried about. Tokyo really got through this with very little damage. The death toll here was maybe around 20 people, which, considering the scale of this, cataclysmic event, it is really fortunate. In northeastern Japan, it's not so. So really keep your thoughts and prayers with the people in northeastern Japan. Places like Aomori, Iwate, Sendai. They really got hammered by this. Not so much the earthquake, but especially the tsunami. Kyoto, Osaka, Kobe, Kyushu, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Shikoku, all of Western Japan, like Tokyo, really got through this fairly well, considering the scale of the event, as I said. But northeastern Japan is going to need a lot of help getting itself together after this, and even just figuring out where we go from here. There's still a lot of unknowns, including whether or not there'll be further earthquakes and the status, of course, of 2 nuclear power plants that are currently having problems in Fukushima. I'll try and keep you guys updated on that stuff as much as I can. Look in the notes section below for links on where you can get more information from me or other places on the internet that I recommend. Here in Tokyo, though, since that's the perspective I have, the current state is definitely one of anticipation. A very large number of Tokyoites are not from Tokyo. They're from other parts of Tokyo, so when the earthquake hit, immediately people found out where it was, and their thoughts went to friends and family they have who live there. So there's a lot of anxiety for people who still haven't been able to get in contact with their friends and family in those areas of Japan. Things on the ground here, though, are fairly good. My gas went off briefly, but I have electricity, gas. Electricity was out in some parts of Tokyo, but it's been mostly restored. Trains went out immediately following the earthquake and were only restored either very late last night, and they don't normally run 24 hours, but they ran until morning to get people who were stranded home. Subway stations stayed open to house people who were stranded, and literally, as you can see from this picture, the stations were crowded with people yesterday. I'll get to more of that later. So I went to the convenience store this morning. As you can see in this photo, the shelves were bare. There's very little left to pick over. Either people got there earlier than I did this morning, or they had already they hadn't gotten a new delivery since the day before, which is entirely possible given the confusion going on right now. I, fortunately, about an hour after the earthquake, immediately went to the convenience store and loaded up on bottled water and food stuff, so I'm totally fine in that regard. But it was kind of creepy to walk into a convenience store that's normally, just filled with every possible comestible you can imagine, and it feels like, a bread line in Soviet Russia. It really was a little bit unnerving to go like, oh my God, what happened to everything? I even passed a small dojo. had this sign up that apparently karate was canceled for the day due to the earthquake. So if you ever wondered who wins in a battle, karate or tsunamis, spinning back kicks, don't have anything against them. That is pretty much the mood here. Everything non-essential is being put off because people are glued to their TVs. I have been as well. I've been watching NHK, the National Public Broadcaster, pretty much since the earthquake started, and very few people got any sleep last night. It was a restless night, mostly because of the anxiety, because it's kind of hard to lay in bed and look up at your ceiling and think, is this going to be laying on top of me in the morning? Because aftershocks are continuing. Around 4:30 this morning, there was a 6 magnitude earthquake in Nagano Prefecture, which is far away from the original point, and not really an aftershock, but possibly an entirely different earthquake, which just was really frightening, because then everyone starts thinking, like, oh my god, when's the next shoe going to drop? Is there another earthquake coming? Which is possible, you know, so everyone's a little bit tense about that possibility. And of course, waiting to hear more news about what's going on in, you know, the areas I mentioned before. Going on to the immediate aftermath yesterday, it was surreal. I came to Japan 2 months before the September 9/11 attacks, so I wasn't there for them, but I imagine this is about the only thing I could relate it to in my experience. Watching on TV the footage of people walking across bridges, on train tracks, on bridges to get out of Odaiba, you know, fire plumes in the background, everyone waiting for the next sort of shoe to drop, as I said, not knowing if there's going to be another earthquake at any moment. That sort of anxiety and feeling is very similar to the feeling I felt watching on TV, you know, my hometown of New York, on fire, and watching those commuters cross the Brooklyn Bridge, walking to get into the suburbs. As I said, the trains immediately shut down and basically stranded millions of people in the city center. It happened at 2:30 in the afternoon, so people were at work on a Friday afternoon. And after that, it became an exodus of people trying to find a way out of the city. I have to say this, the Japanese people did themselves a great honor by the way they, you know, carried themselves throughout the course of it. I have never seen such organized, quiet bedlam in my entire life. People were asking questions like, were there, like, to me on email and Twitter and things like that, was there looting or things like that? I mean, it wasn't the farthest thing you could imagine. It looked like the most disciplined, like, middle school field trip of all time. People were basically just walking in crowds along, like, the main thoroughfares out of the city, pretty much silence. There was absolute gridlock on all of the roads. But I heard less honking than I'd hear on a normal Friday afternoon in New York City, Manhattan. It was completely orderly, and it was really a credit to them. And actually all the preparedness they put into it, because the government immediately sprung into action, and pretty much everyone, because like it is, you know, one of the most earthquake-prone places in the world, people are used to these types of things. I saw people with helmets on the street, many people with helmets. That they had helmets prepared. My next door neighbor, like when I saw her pop out of her house, wearing a helmet. You know, it was really amazing. But it was tense. It was tense. It was very unreal. I went into an electronics shop, and there were these forlorn-looking salespeople trying to half-heartedly sell people TVs, but everyone was there, just crowded around the TVs, simply to watch and see what the heck was happening. As you can see in this photo, yeah, it was really creepy. In the stations, it was basically, it looked like a student protest sit-in. The stations were just filled with people who just had no other place to go. The stations remained open that night partially so that people would have shelter, because it was actually quite cold. It's still winter here, obviously, and it's even colder further north. So for the people who are homeless or trapped, it would have been unbearable last night. Snowing in some places. Lines for the bathroom in the station were looked to be like an hour long. People lost who had really never gotten home any other way than a train or a bus or a taxi or car were forced to look at maps and try and figure out exactly, you know, what road it is that got them home. Another sort of interesting twist, which I hadn't expected, but is kind of one of the Achilles heels of modern society. Everyone has cell phones. Everyone has cell phones. So as a result, they've slowly been getting rid of payphones. And it's like this huge burden on the phone companies to keep these payphones operational. And this earthquake has proven why they're necessary, even in today's day and age. Because people say, I've got a cell phone. All the cell phone towers went out. No one had cell phone service. I could only contact other people in Tokyo by tweeting them through the internet or Facebook messaging them. Internet connections were spotty, but like, you know, working. But phone connections, not at all. Ground lines worked here in Tokyo. In northeastern Japan, communications are, you know, probably non-existent at this point. As the roads are washed out, train tracks are washed out. Actually, last I heard, 4 trains are actually missing. Many of Japan's train lines run along the shore because those tend to be the flattest areas of this island nation, as you know, the center parts of the country are mountainous, so mountainous that it'd be impossible to build train tracks along them. So a lot of the train lines are along the shore. So when those waves hit, you know, they took out entire trains with them, and whoever's in them probably washed out to sea. Because trains can't really turn left and get out of the way of, you know, a tsunami. So I can't even imagine, you know, what we're yet to learn in that regard. So yeah, technology in some ways was a failure, but in some ways a savior. It reminded me in some ways watching like what's happening in the Middle East and all the Twitter, Facebook things that were going on, and I totally understand why now. When, you know, the traditional forms of communication shut down, that's what's left, you know, and it really was an impressive thing. It really might say a lot about the future of how emergencies are handled. And my experience in it, I was right here. I was just a few feet over that way, and I've been in like, I have no idea, I can't even count how many earthquakes I've been in. The last 10 years I've lived in Japan, no idea, like 200 or something more that I like actually even felt. And it was no different at first. I just felt a little bit of a rumble, and it was kind of low and slow and steady, like kind of like a wave. And I felt nothing of it. And after it went on for a little bit, over about 30 seconds, I think, and it started to gradually increase in strength, I said, yeah, this isn't a typical earthquake, because you just know how they feel after a while. Like, this one felt different. I was like, okay, maybe I'm being nervous now, but I'm gonna go put my shoes on, grab a jacket, and I went to my front door, opened up the doorway, stepped outside, I looked around, and all of my neighbors were now standing in their doorways. I looked over my neighbor to the left, and she was wearing a helmet, and that's when it really started to hit, and the house was shaking, telephone poles were going. I'm looking up thinking like, oh God, I hope I don't get crushed by this telephone pole or any of these electrical wires fall loose and, you know, electrocute me. I don't need a perm. Like, it was probably one of the most frightening experiences I've ever been in, other than, say, like car accidents. But it's like an extended car accident. People have been asking me how long did it go on for. I honestly don't know. I just know that when it ended, my heart was pounding. My legs were, I'm not embarrassed to say, my legs were literally shaking. I was shaking like a leaf. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that in my life. And it turns out no one around me had. And that's when it really keyed into me that, okay, this was something big. And the secondary fear hit that this wasn't just, oh my God, it's like, you know, my bookshelf going to fall over. This is something serious. Because my next door neighbor, is probably in her 50s, said, I've never felt an earthquake like that. And immediately, you know, people went in, turned on NHK, the public broadcaster here, which is pretty much the best source of news, you know. And they were reporting immediately the size of the earthquake, and it was just, wow. And actually, it got upgraded as the day went on when they realized just how big it was. I went out and was walking around, and I'll share this little moment with you. Take a look at this picture I took, and you might ask yourself what this is a picture of. And your first reaction might be that it's rubble. Okay, that's not rubble. That's always what the yard near my house looks like. It's somewhat near my house. There's a onsen, a sento. It's a hot bath, public hot bath. So you pay a little money, you go in and take a hot bath. But this one's special in that it's heated by wood. Most are heated by gas or coal. But every morning around 8 a.m., a 70-year-old dude and his wife who run the place, he gets up with his bandsaw and starts cutting up lumber to use to burn for the fire that heats the water, that heats the jacuzzis and the hot baths and whatnot that you can use at the place. And he wakes me up every morning with this stupid bandsaw cutting wood. I mean, I cut wood at night, but he cuts it every morning. Within 30 seconds of the earthquake ending, I see him. He's sort of looking around like, "Ooh, wow, it's quite an earthquake." About 30 seconds, like, "All right, that done?" Gets out the bandsaw and went back to work cutting lumber almost instantaneously. Almost instantaneously. And I just thought to myself, Sasuga Tokyo. That Sasuga Nihon. That right there, that's Japan. Tokyo has been rebuilt many, many, many times since its founding as Edo hundreds of years ago. This city, if nothing, is a city constantly being rebuilt. And the Japanese, living in perhaps the most earthquake-prone place in the world, have just grown so accustomed to the fact that, you know what, at some point it's all going to get destroyed. We're going to have to rebuild it all again. So the second it's done, you set to work rebuilding. And I think that informs a lot of the attitude and the lack of frustration, a huge amount of patience, and what we're seeing now in the rescue efforts and whatnot going on in like northeastern Japan right now and throughout the country. The government immediately launched into action. By dawn this morning, the leader of Japan, Naoto Kan, was in the affected areas, personally overlooking like damage. It's a culture that bounces back well. And I know there's a lot of concern from around the world, but having lived here for 10 years and seen these people, if anybody can bounce back from a disaster of this magnitude, I completely have faith in the Japanese people to be able to do it. And it's a great credit to them as an outside observer. And I really hope we can, as an international community and international people here, support them in that goal in any way we can. But you know what? They'll be back on their feet before you know it. I truly have faith in that. From my end, that's really it for today. I want to keep this as short as I can, but as I said, I want to try and update you guys on other things. Other quick things you may have heard, it is true, Tokyo Tower, the old Tokyo Tower, the top has been bent. I have no idea how that happened or how they're going to fix that. I'm imagining it was just the sway did it. There's been rumors going around on Twitter, which have been making me livid, of people worried about the status of Tokyo Disneyland. Like, considering the destruction being wrought on the city of Sendai, to give a crap about Disneyland, it was really upsetting. But there's been this rumor going around that like 70,000 people were trapped there. Everyone was evacuated almost immediately. Those who weren't evacuated were perfectly safe. The parking lot got a little bit wet. And that was about the extent of the damage. People were posting pictures of Disney Sea, which is the ocean-themed resort, and saying, Disneyland's underwater. So if I could help end that retarded internet rumor, that just offends me just for the fact that it's just the worst kind of like insensitivity to the situation of the people who have just been made homeless, that you're worried whether or not Ariel will have a place to live. Yeah. That's pretty much all for my thoughts, other than next Earth Day, I'm going to go find a huge patch of grass and take a piss on it. And say, hey, Mother Earth, that's for Sendai. For me, that's it. There's more information on things you can get. I highlight the best source of information you can get on what's going on here up to date is from, I believe, NHK, the Japanese national broadcaster. They have an English language information service that just started a few years ago. I actually have to work for it, so I'm promoting it for that, but it's the most direct information you can get. If you're getting it from like cable news sources in your home country, then you're getting like probably secondhand information from people who are translating things or just getting things off like the AP wire. So your best bet is NHK. I'm putting links to that information in the bottom of the video. If you're in Japan, there's also information how you can get English language information about what's going on in Japan and outside of Japan. So check out those links if you want to keep following. Also, follow me on Twitter. I'll be constantly updating. I'll also be on BlogTV, hopefully every day until things start to settle down a bit, to update people who are concerned about what's going on here. And all that information is in the notes below. I hope you are well, if you're in or without Tokyo. And thank you guys for your concern. It's much appreciated by, I'm sure, myself and all of the people in this country. Thanks.